All right. All right. On that note, I shall begin. Um, Hi, everybody. Some of you are going to join, so I think maybe we can slowly start. My name is Hassan, and I am going to be taking your attention for the next 1 hour. I have a lot to cover with me. I was reading the amount of slides that I have. I have 121 slides that I want to share with you. And it always, like, it's short on time, so I go really fast. So at any point in time you think you want me to stop or discuss, please, you can leave it in the chat, or you can just ask me to stop and shut up, and I will. I'm from Growth Tribe. This is all I want to cover with you. So I want to introduce what we do, then why we talk about experimentation. I want to give you with a little bit of a framework that you can use to go out there and start experimenting yourself. And then a lot of times when people listen to growth hacking, right, what they want is they want to know the tactics. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what growth hacking could potentially look like as well. And then we wrap up and we do some questions. Just an introduction on Growth Tribe. We are have been around for over 5 years now, and we've trained over 15,000 people based out of Amsterdam. And these are over 900 companies that we've trained on how to accelerate and become more ready for the digital future. Because this is what we see happening. The general trajectory on which you learn skills goes something like this. But the way there are different channels, there are different technologies that are popping up, that the demand for skills is going at a very exponential rate, right? Something like coronavirus. So there is this gap between what we know and what we should know. And that's that gap that we're trying to fill through our courses and curriculums, which is based on speed learning. It's super practical and it is cutting edge. These are just some names that I just want to show you so that if anybody in the audience is thinking that maybe I'm on the regulated side, so this is not for me. So just to let you know that we've trained a range of companies, both from regulated to unregulated, and then also in terms of size, big companies and small companies as well. So I'll just dive right into why experimentation matters. And that's the end objective of what I want you to remember from this course, right? From this webinar. Why do you want to experiment and what's so special about it? So I'm actually going to ask you to write in the chat, if you are around, in what's common between these names that you're seeing on the slides right now. What could be a common denominator under all of this? I'm going to give you 30 seconds. If nobody writes, then I'll tell you what I'm talking about. Linda seems to have lost sound. I hope that's not everybody. Can you tell me if you can hear me?
I can hear you, Hassan. If everyone,
Okay.
if anyone else has any issues.
All right.
Like everyone else says they can hear.
Yes. So, and Andrea, you're right. Like they failed to adapt. They failed to innovate, and there were also competition that kind of just came in and swept them away. And this is what we see, and numbers also show you the exact same thing. There are Fortune 500 companies that have completely disappeared, 52% of them, over the past 15 years. And these companies, they have been gobbled up by these innovative companies that you can see are not just tech ones. Intuit is a financial company. And they're not all tech companies. So, but what these companies, the winners, what they're doing differently is that they're doing all of these amount of experiments every year, right? So they try out different things about themselves, about their industries, about their customers, about their business models, and they find out the best way to kind of, like, through experimentation, the best way to reach out to their users. And that's what gives them that competitive advantage. And that's why they are the winners. And this is something that you can also see, like Yahoo. I'm sure all of you in this room have also used Yahoo at some point in time, but it doesn't really exist too much at a really big scale anymore. So this is what the founder was found to be saying, that Google just outran us. And Yahoo did not have an experimentation engine. So that's why, like, they couldn't really, they were no match for Google, right? So experimentation, it matters. And when we talk about experimentation, there is an entire process that you have to go through before you can make experimentation happen, right? So experimentation is that end goal, but there are some series of steps that you have to go through. For instance, you've got the mindset at the base. This is the fundamental, right? Before you get mindset, you can't really focus on the process, people, tactics, because it won't come through. So there is this logical flow that we see in the companies that we train, that this is how they need to conquer in order to transform. Something that Andrea also said, in order to adapt. So let's talk about this mindset and what is different about growth versus what we might be doing till this point in time. So the mindset is all about bringing about a change in the way people approach their daily work, right? So you might do a campaign today in a marketing capacity, but what experimentation would do is it would ask you to break it down into smaller things, test it out first, and then go out there, right? So it's just doing the same thing, but doing it differently. And this is something, when we talk about the mindset, the one name that comes to your head is this guy, and his name is Takeru Kobayashi. So if any one of you watches ESPN somewhere around July, you would know that there is a competitive hot dog eating competition that happens every year. And this guy, you guys can't see my height, but he's my height and my weight. And he completely demolished the world record for how many hot dogs you can eat in 10 minutes. So till he joined the competition, it was 25 hot dogs per 10 minutes, but he completely demolished it and brought it up to 50 hot dogs in 10 minutes, right? And you can see that in this particular competition, there are people who are much more well-resourced to be participating in such a competition. I mean, if you are to put your money on it, I would not put my money on this guy. But he completely caught everybody off guard. And his secret was also experimentation, right? So the same way corporates are experimenting different things of the best way, the most optimized way to get something done, that's what this guy did as well. And I had these two experiments. He tried out a number of different things, but these are the ones that actually worked. So what he decided to do was separate the sausage from the bun. And what that meant was this was easier to chomp down, so he was able to take this down. But that left you with the bread, which is truly the nemesis of competitive hot dog eating, right? Because you really have to chew it down before you swallow. And what he did instead was he was allowed to keep water on his table, but the rule book did not say or suggest how to use that particular, how to use water, right? So instead of drinking it, what he ended up doing, he started dipping the bread in the water. And that made it into this nice paste, which together, like this is what the end result looked like. And this analogy has really caught on in the world of growth because over here at Growth Tribe, we also say this to a lot of the companies that are coming here, that if you're going to grow your company today, you better learn to eat hot dogs fast. Jeff Bezos, a name that we all know, he's actually said this about the secret behind Amazon as well. Our success at Amazon is a function of how many experiments we do per year, per month, per week, per day. Being wrong might hurt you a bit, but being slow will definitely kill you, right? So this power of experimentation is something that you can see it's all in the numbers of how many different things are you able to try. I like to give the analogy of throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks, right? So that's exactly what you do through experimentation as well. Like you want to see what sticks. So when we talk about running a number of experiments, like the quantity of experiments, there has to be a systematic process around it, right? And that's why process comes second. After you have the mindset, you need to enable that process so that you can build these experimentation in your everyday life, work life. So how you do this, we call this rapid experimentation. And we've got our own internal process, which is called the GROWS process. And because we're almost a startup, we were at some point in time, but everything that we do is an acronym, and this is also an acronym, which stands for G, which is gathering ideas. So over here, what we do is we look at data, both hard and soft data, so both qualitative and quantitative data. And from there, we get certain ideas about things that we want to try out, right? This is how our idea backlog looks like, as you can see. You have all of these ideas coming from the numbers that you're seeing, and you want to try these out. But at this point in time, you don't know if this idea is good or not, or if it's going to have the impact that you thought it will or not. So that's why what we need to do is we also need to rank these ideas so that the ones that are low effort, high impact, those are the ones that show up higher and they get a higher score. And how we do this is that we've got different prioritization frameworks, but we essentially give them weighted average scores for certain factors, like what is going to be the impact or what is the chances of success, right? And all of these ideas get their own scores. So you can see like these ones have 400, this is 256. So automatically, when you look at this idea backlog, you know that these are the ones that I want to try out first, because these are the ones that will, get me the results and get me a higher impact without a minimum amount of effort. So that's why we rank ideas, and that's how we do it over here. Then, in order to test if an idea is a good idea or a terrible idea, you obviously have to test it out, right? And that's where going small, that's where dipping your feet in the water, it becomes really important. You can't just dive into that idea completely. You need a minimum viable experiment, right? A minimum amount of effort that will allow you to test that idea out. So how we do this over here is we've got this entire experimentation template, right? And it has all of the things that you need to account for. But essentially, your idea experiment needs to be something that you can measure. Why? Because you need to know if you got the numbers that you thought you would versus the numbers that, so you set that benchmark from before. It needs to be tracked correctly. So we have a lot of emphasis on how your data infrastructure is. So the Google Analytics and the HubSpots of the world, right? So it needs to be tracked properly. And then it needs to be done in a short amount of time. So there are some experiments that are even shorter than a week, right? But generally we say that you should do it for 2 weeks. Try something out for 2 weeks and then try something different. So this is what our experiment design looks like. The next stage is once you have designed your experiment, you need to implement it and you need to optimize it. So we do this through sprints. And I'm not sure how many of you already work in sprints, but essentially in our sprints, what we want to do is we want to run as many experiments as possible, because we know that the trajectory suggests that if you have the number of experiments, then you will also have more wins. When you have more wins, you make more money, right? So it's all about the number of experiments that you can run in these weekly sprints. So if you are to look at your entire year, this is generally what the spread looks like. You've got some weekends, public holidays, paid vacation, sick days that you want to take out. But once you take all of these days out, you can actually in a year run 21.5 sprints. And one sprint might not look like a big deal to you, but when you look at the entire year and 21.5 sprints, this is how your results could look like. So imagine that you are able to do 10 experiments in one sprint, and you only have a 30% success rate. So out of 10 experiments, only 3 are the ones that got you the result that you thought it would. And these are small experiments that I'm talking about. I will show you some types of experiments so that you can wrap your heads around what essentially does it look like. So by the end of the year, with these 2 parameters, you can have 65 small wins at the end of the year, right? And this is that 0.1% or 3.1% improvement or 50% improvement, I don't know, in different parts of your process, in your life cycle. And this is that organic growth that, no campaign or no paid acquisition can bring for you. And then finally, once you run all of these experiments, we place like special emphasis on actually looking back at your results, the numbers, and seeing if you got trying to make sense out of it, get learnings out of it. Because even if an experiment fails, if you are able to get some learning about what your users like, what they don't like, how they behave, then you use those learnings to further optimize your future experiments. Right? So studying data is really important, because once you do this, you get more ideas for more experiments, right? Based on the ones that you've already done, you get more ideas and you want to try that out. So that feeds into the gathering ideas phase. But I'll get into that in a bit, but this is what our dashboard looks like. You've got all your wins, you've got all your fails on different sides. And then for each win or each fail, you have the top learnings written over there as well and documented. And you can share this knowledge with other people in your team who are in a similar situation as you, and they would benefit from the experiment that you're also doing. On the right, you're seeing fails over here. And this is also something that we really like to emphasize on, that a fail is something that needs to be encouraged, because that's something that would empower your audience, your teams to go out there and try out different things. Because if you're too scared to fail, then you won't really try out different things. You won't try out like these big ideas that I will show you in a bit. So here at Growth Tribe, for instance, and this is how we build culture around failing as well. We've got this fail board where every time we have a fail, we note it down, and after every 10th fail, we have a fail party, right? So we've got a similar win board as well, but essentially when somebody comes into our office, like they can automatically tell that this team is not afraid of failing, and that's the kind of thought process that you want to build into your teams as well, and people around you. So essentially, what you do is you keep going through this growth process again and again and again and again, like I said, over the year. And this is what your trajectory could look like. So in the beginning, you start running experiments. You will get a lot of, like the first few experiments are not going to be a clear winner or a clear fail. Like maybe you might not be able to make any sense out of it. So it's inconclusive, right? But with each experiment, because you are learning things and because you are building on that learning, you will get better at it, right? And this is how the trajectory look. At some point in time, you will get this one idea that was like the golden nugget, right? It got you a lot of people to sign up to your particular business or service. But then essentially when you look at it in the long term, this is that organic growth that you are going to get, right? And this is based on small optimization or changes that you have made along your entire customer journey. So I'm going to give you an example of how somebody who we were working with, they took part in one of our courses, how they were able to try out a bunch of different things and then find what that golden nugget was for them. So for this example, I'm going to use this use case over here, which is Mr. Green. So here in Netherlands, if you want to buy a Tesla or lease a Tesla, you would go to this website over here and you would click on this button, which means a quick offer, right? So once you click on this button, you will land on this landing page. There's a lot of text over here. You would scroll to the bottom of the landing page. They would ask you for your name and email address and your phone number. And then somebody from the sales team would give you a call. Point being, it was a really long process and it would take like 2 months for one sale to happen. So this guy, he was from the sales team and he got paid when he made sales, right? So he was paid on commission. So he wanted to try out a model which was fully online, right? And it was more self-service model. And obviously, if he were to go back into his company and say, I want to try something that's radically different, all the teams are going to get involved, right? And you're going to try to put out the best foot forward. And that takes time and that takes money and that discourages people to go out there and try out different things. So what this guy did is sitting in this course, like he started trying out different things and he ran a number of different experiments. And the first 5 experiments were not really a win. They were inconclusive. They were maybe even a fail. But the 6th experiment, and over here, this is what his experiment looked like. He decided to create a landing page that talked about this new self-service, fully online way of working. And he drove traffic towards it using Facebook ads. Once somebody came on that landing page, they would leave their email address over there, and through MailChimp, he automated that process, and they would be sent towards this particular form. It's a way of collecting information. This is what the landing page he created looked like. It's a conversion-centric landing page. As you can see, there's only one big thing, one big red button that you can click on. Interestingly, that's Max in the background as well. So you can see that this is not the prettiest landing page on earth, right? And it's not going to win any design awards. But that's really not what we're trying to do over here. What we're trying to do is, in an MVP kind of a way, try out if this idea that I have in my head, does it have any early signals of success? Should we invest time and money and resources into it? This is what his type form looked like. Something like this you can create in an hour using this tool called Typeform. And whenever somebody left their email address over here, this is how he collected information about the kind of car they want, right? What color, what interior, what rims, and all of that information that he would earlier call the potential leads for. He ran this experiment for 2 days. He was the one person who was working on it. He did not need a lot of support system because he used like the power of tools, which people are really excited about. But he used those tools to kind of just get the minimum viable experiment out there. This is how much it costs him. And he actually got one hard conversion on the first day, right? And something that would normally take 2 months, he was able to just literally compress that within 1 day. And that sale is not what's important. But what's important about that sale is that it stands for something. And it stands for the fact that, you know what, Max, your idea is not terrible. And you should actually go ahead and do something else, like build on this idea. And that did happen, right? So he went back to his developers and his bosses and said, sorry guys, I tried something new. I just want to see if it's going to work or not. But I actually got one hard conversion on the first day. I think there is merit in this idea. So let's invest that time, money, resources. And then they did. And Mr. Green now has a separate business model, which looks something like this. They hard coded that particular format onto their website. And now as you're putting in this information, you're also getting your leads calculation on the side. Over a year after implementation, something like this got them 800% increase in leads. And obviously, like, it's not just about the company itself, right? You also want to see how you can grow within that company or how your teams can grow in your company. So Max got promoted, became the head of growth. I think he's head of growth of some other company now. But essentially, like, this is how both, it benefits your own professional growth, but also the business around you. At any point in time, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. I will get into that towards the end. But we are now going to move on to people, which in our transformation pyramid, right, that's the third thing. So once you have the mindset, once you have the process, then you need the right people. So when we talk about growth, we just don't talk about doing campaigns where you attract people to your website, right? For us, growth goes deeper. So essentially, we look at this entire customer journey. So you've got awareness. In most cases, this is when somebody visits your website. Then you've got acquisition, where you get them to do a certain action on your website. This could be downloading a white paper. This could be looking at your products. It could be reading about you, anything, or signing up to your newsletter. Then you need to activate them. You need to wow them, make them realize that this is your value proposition and you need me. Then you have revenue, so revenue here is in the end. You can move it around depending on your industry. But you actually get that purchase. You want retention because you don't want people to go lose business. And then finally, you have referrals, which is exponential growth. So marketing teams, generally traditional marketing team, and I have been in a few myself, they usually just focus on the awareness and acquisition bit. But this is where growth teams have a broader scope. And that's why you need multifunctional teams so that you can fill this entire funnel, right? So the growth teams need to focus on the entire funnel. And this is what a good profile of a growth person could look like. I like to say that you need to know a little about a lot, and then a lot about a little, right? So there are all these different areas that are really important in order to run these experiments, right? So experimentation, customer journeying, persuasion tactics, like these are these broad areas. So you need to know a little bit about all of these so that you can go out there and try out different things. But then you need to be an expert in a particular specific skill, that is your skill, and that's where you go deep. So essentially, you want to have a little bit of the mindset and some professional skills, but you need those specific skills on the side so that you can then become the specialist for that in that particular team. So this is how the profile looks like. Here at Growth Drive, we do a lot of capability assessments where we give you situations and we try to assess how you would approach that situation. And based on that, we give you and also your teams a score on the different skills and areas that are important within growth. And then you get to see like where you are and also compare to the people around you in your team or maybe in a particular course that you're taking. So you get to see how you kind of benchmark against other people as well. So this is how we do this for both your team and yourself. And this is how it looks in practice. We work a lot with TomTom, and these guys, they took a crash course with us, and then we went through a round of coaching where we tried out a bunch of different things. But the crux of this entire project was that you want to upskill your team, right? You want to improve the T-shape, which is the shape that I was showing you, where you need to know a lot about a little about a lot, and then a lot about a little. So we wanted to improve their T-shape as well. And this is what their team skills level looks like. The darker it is, the more skilled you are in that area. And from this, we were able to do increase this to this, right? And at a team level, you can see that more people were able to wear different hats and think about ideas or experiments that they want to test out. And these guys, when you look at them, they were not really testing out like super technical stuff. The kind of experiments that they were doing, that really opens up to your eyes that these are just little things that are out there and we want to test them out because maybe you could get an additional moving the needle that could trickle down in your entire funnel, right? So the experiment that these guys were doing looked like something like this. Their experiment was they wanted to disable auto suggest on their checkout form because when you would try to put in a street name, you would get suggestions over there that would distract people. That was their hypothesis, and they decided to remove the auto suggest. And by doing that, it did reduce distraction, but it improved that conversion at that point by 3.14%, right? And that's really powerful because it's such a simple experiment, but you won't really know till you try it out. Another experiment that they did, on their shopping basket, what they realized was that people would click on the product and they would go into a new tab and get distracted and never come back to this shopping basket again. So there was a high amount of add to cart abandonment, right? So cart abandonment. So what these guys did is they looked at user recordings, they kind of validated it, and then they decided to, instead of opening a new tab, just make it pop up, right? All the information that you wanted to know about your product at that point, just a pop up, and you can close it and go back into your basket. And by doing that, they were able to increase their add to cart rate in terms of percentage by 5.08%, right? And this is really close to revenue. So this is the kind of experiment that I would call low effort, high impact, because it's very close to the revenue bit, which is something that speaks to everybody in your organization. Overall, the experiment, there were a lot of other experiments we did. We redesigned their landing page, made it more optimized. And over time, this particular team saw a 50% increase in sales. They were running 6 experiments per sprint. And based on the learnings, based on the wins and the fails, they were getting those learnings that were being shared with other people in the organization as well. And that brings us to the last bit, right? The tip of the iceberg over here, which is the tactics. So you've got the mindset. This is thinking like Takeru Kobayashi, and running a lot of different experiments, right? Trying out a lot of different things. Then you've got the method, the process, which is the growth process. You gather ideas, you rank them, you outline experiments, you get to work, and then you study data. Then you've got the people, which is the T-shaped profile, where you need to kind of look at different areas so that you can wear those hats and think about the ideas that you want to test out. And then finally, you've got tactics, right? And tactics are the end outcome. If you follow the process and if you have the people, the end outcome is that you get these tactics. So remember, I told you about this end-to-end customer journey. So I'm just going to show you a few interesting things that I've come across. And I'm going to take you through at least the first 3 stages. So let's look at awareness first, right? So what kind of experiments can you do in order to increase the amount of people who visit your website or the quality of people who visit your website? So there is this concept, it's called banner blindness. And we all experience it, right? When you're watching a YouTube video, you automatically stop yourself from watching the top banner or the side banner, right? So because you already know like somebody or someone is promoting themselves over there. So because this particular concept is so real, what you need to do is you need to figure out your channels, right? Because maybe the channel that you highly depend on, it's not working anymore because this is the life cycle of different channels. Like they get popular after a certain point and they reach their max. And then after that, everybody gets on that particular channel. In terms of email, you start getting a lot of spam. So the efficacy of that channel goes down. And then obviously as a growth person, you need to explore the next best channel, right? Are you going to go on Reddit next? Or are you going to create your own channel? So when you do talk about something like this, it's really important that you look at your persona, but you study not just their demographics, not just where they live, not just what their age is, but you also think about their psychographics, right? What do they do and what frustrates them? What is their attitude like? What is their personality type? Because this is really how you can separate yourself from your competition, because you are connecting with your personas, with your potential customers at a deeper level. So there are like a lot of implications for doing this, right? So just going to play a short game in your heads. You can think about the answer. But I'm going to tell you some demographics, some social demographic traits of this particular person in question. And you have to, in your head, guess who I'm talking about. So this person is born in 1948. He's a male, born and grew up in England. Married twice, has children, wealthy, invests in real estate, and the biggest hint, lives in a castle. Right? So I'm sure your heads went towards the royal family. So yes, we are talking about Prince Charles. But this exact social demographic traits, they actually also fit into another profile, right? And that profile is another prince, but it's the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, right? And you can clearly see that even though the social demographics are same, the psychographics are clearly very different. And the way you would go and talk to maybe Prince Charles if you're marketing something would be very different from the way maybe you would approach Ozzy Osbourne. And the same is true for your customers as well, right? You want to keep in mind their particular, like their emotions and their personality, and you need to present that foot forward. So for instance, there is this tool, it's called Data Sign. And what that tool does is that it kind of shows you, like you feed in information about your persona, and then it suggests words or images to use based on the personality of that particular persona. So for instance, if you're an extrovert, I, for some reason, need to move this. So for instance, if you're an extrovert, what this would do is this particular tool will tell you to use this picture because you can see that people are sitting together. And the headline should be along the lines of you host the parties and we'll insure you, right? So you can see that it's talking to an extroverted audience. Or if the majority of your persona is an introvert, then you can use the same message, but frame it differently. So instead of showing somebody in a party or with a lot of people, show them alone, reading a book at home comfortably, and live at your own pace, and that's what they're talking about over here. And then finally, agreeable is another trait, a personality trait. It means are you very skeptical? If not, then you are more agreeable, right? So when you are agreeable, you're more family oriented as well. So you don't want to shake things up too much. So this is the kind of image that you want to show. So everything you need to live in harmony. So that messaging has changed, the visuals have changed. And by doing this experiment with Unibank, for their home insurance product, they were able to increase 22% sales with just the first experiment. This particular tool, because it is built on artificial intelligence, so all of its insights are taken from the past data that it has. What this tool also does is image recognition really well. So if you have a lot of ads, or collateral for ads, and you want to see which one would potentially work the best in terms of conversion rates, what you do is you upload all the different options that you have, and based on its own maybe thought process, it would tell you which ad or visual would perform better. So over here, I don't know if you want to think in your heads, but from all of these that was uploaded, this one was the one that got the highest score by Data Sign. And that the reason behind that was because like these were the things that it could see from its image analysis. So it gives you a particular score over here as well. So before you even put your ad out there, you can kind of de-risk it by doing a quick check on something like this. So this particular feature is for free, so you can try it on your own as well. But based on its predictions, what these guys wanted to do there was that they actually wanted to see to what extent the predictions would actually be true. So what they had were 56 assets in total, and they wanted to see out of them, like which assets would work better. They fed all of those 56 assets to data sign, and this was the ranking that data sign gave it. It said this one was going to be number 2, and this one is going to be number 1. This is number 5. So it gave you this particular ranking of potential or prediction of conversion. And when they actually ran it, they saw that the number 1 and the number 2 were actually the number 1 and number 2 that were through the actual results as well. So this shows the level of accuracy that you can get from something like this, which maybe your human eye or my human eye could miss. We love this other tool as well, which is a way to understand about what your persona does in their free time. So it's called sparktoro.com. And what it does is you put in a topic and you can have different types of inputs. It doesn't have to be just a topic. It could be a particular website, right? And it will throw out different things that people are doing around that particular topic. So if you put in Bitcoin, it found these many people talk about Bitcoin, and they use social publicly available information to kind of give you a report on them. So it tells you what kind of words they use, what kind of hashtags they use, what social accounts they follow, websites, podcasts, YouTube pages, right? So you can find a lot about what people are doing in their free times and get inspired. If nothing else, get inspired to create content that they are consuming over there. So that could help you in acquiring customers through maybe a source that you could not think about. So that's about awareness. It's all about, taking it one step further, not just targeting people based on demographics, but targeting people based on psychographics as well. And then you've got acquisition, which is the second stage. So once somebody is on your website, you want them to take one most important action, right? So what is that action? It could be different for you. For an e-commerce website, it would be going to the product page. But for a B2B website, it would be to download a white paper or watch a video, right? Or leave a contact form or book a demo. So whatever it is, you decide that for yourself. But essentially what you want to do is you want to optimize your website to that particular objective, because you have put in a lot of effort to get somebody to your website. So you want to increase the chances of them taking the next step as well. So that's where optimization comes in. And this is a chart. This was a study that was done by Microsoft. These guys, they want to test out how people behave on websites. So they tested out 200,000 different websites. And what they saw was this particular trend, that within the first 5 to 10 seconds, 97% of the people have already decided to leave the page, right? And so that first 5 to 10 seconds has a huge drop-off rate. And as more and more time passes by, the chances of them dropping off reduces, right? Because now you have their attention. So those first 5 to 10 seconds are something that as growth people, you can really make a difference with, right? And essentially in these first 5 seconds, you want to answer these two questions. Number one, what does that website do or offer? So what is your website all about? And then what makes you special? Why not go to a competitor of yours, right? What is your unique selling proposition? These are two things that we kind of take it for granted, right? Because we are working on our particular websites day in, day out. So we think that everybody else also understands our product the way we understand our product. But that's not true. So you really need to spell out what your website does or offer, and then what makes you special, so that you can get people's attention in the first 5 to 10 seconds, and then you tell them more about you. So I'm going to show you an image for 5 seconds, and I want you to, in your head, try to guess what I'm talking about. So I've done this test with a lot of people, and generally they can tell that this particular website is selling phones. And what makes it special is somewhere where people are not able to figure out what makes that particular phone special. but they actually had a really strong value proposition, which was that this particular phone, it never runs out of memory. So you can store as many pictures, as many videos on it. It would store it all on the cloud, but it will never run out of memory. And this is a really strong value proposition. But when you write copy like everything to gain, which is a tendency for marketers like myself to do, right? You want a punchy, inspirational headline, right? But everything to gain, it's not very clear. What are you gaining? Are you gaining muscle? Are you gaining confidence, right? So it can be like understood in so many different ways. So this needs to be more clear. These guys, they realized that they were not doing well. So they decided to change it around a little bit. So we did a 5-second test on it. We realized that nobody was able to figure out what they're doing. So these guys, they decided to put a literal cloud in the background because everything gets stored on the cloud. So maybe if we show the cloud, that might make it a little bit more obvious. It didn't, because you can see that they tried changing it again afterwards. And this time they tried a different hand model because they were like, maybe like women take more pictures. So I need to show a female hand model, right? Stuff like this costs a lot of money, but an experiment where you test not the visuals, but the copy is something that doesn't take a lot of time. And these guys, they ended up focusing on the wrong thing, and that's what their landing page looks like now. And as you can see, they failed to cease to exist, right? But now I'm going to try to land the point that the copy matters a lot, right? So I'm going to show you a process of how you can improve the copy and then consequently improve the comprehension rate. So I'm going to show you something for 5 seconds, and I want you to try and guess in your head what I'm talking about. What does this website do or offer? A lot of people say that it's a dating website. A lot of people say that they weren't able to figure it out. And what makes it special? People are not able to figure that out as well. So we did a 5-second test on it. Other people agreed as well. But it's actually a really cool tool. What it does is that if you want to buy a specialty product, so something like a turntable, and you don't know much about it, what you do is you answer some certain questions about how you plan on using it. And this tool kind of throws out the best options for you, right? And it shows you your potential match. So 97% match with this particular brand and this particular model. This is one you should get. Right, so it's a really powerful tool, has a strong value proposition, but when you look at this headline, get the right one the first time, it's not really getting that idea across. It's actually confusing people because they're thinking it's a dating app with a really strong value proposition. Did a 5-second test on this, and not many people were able to figure out as well. You can see the responses over here. So we call this comprehension rate. We got a 0% comprehension rate. 0 out of 15 people we tested this on were able to figure it out. So we took it as a personal challenge to ourselves. We're like, we are going to improve the comprehension rate in the first 5 seconds by leaving everything else, but just changing the copy. So we decided to change the headline to, we help you shop better and faster online. So this is a little bit more clear. It's a little bit more functional. We did a 5-second test on this and saw that 13% people were able to answer it, right? So not there yet, but on the improvement trajectory. So then we're like, okay, let's change it to your online buying assistant in seconds, right? So hoping that this is going to communicate our value proposition and what we do. 26% people got it. But it's what I really like about these particular tests is that this is soft data, right? You don't need a lot of respondents, but within those 15 responses, you can get a lot of insights. So it's really fun reading these answers, but they also tell you a lot about what's the customer lingo, how do people like to talk in their own lives, right? And then use that same lingo on your website. And this is exactly what we saw with this 14th respondent over here. This particular tester, he hit the nail on its head. He said, find ideal product you're looking for by answering some tailored questions. And this is exactly what we decided to put on our landing page next. Answer some personal questions to find your ideal product online. Did a 5-second test on this and got an 80% comprehension rate. So something like this would, if I look at my previous organization, this would take if not at quickest, weeks, right? Going through 4 different iterations and testing it out. But doing all of these 4 different iterations took us around 20 minutes. We use this tool, it's called Usability Hub. And you can recruit people over there, and because they have a lot of testers all over the world, they throw out these responses within 5 to 10 minutes. And so it makes it super actionable. You can try out different things. And we call this pre-testing. Before you even put your website live and before you have any kind of paid acquisition towards it, what you do is you do a little bit of pre-testing like this as well. There are a lot of other different types of tests that you can do on Usability Hub. This was just one of the many that you can do on this particular tool. So yes, we kind of copied of the answer from one of the participants, but we at least got a strike from here. Just by the way, the series of landing pages that I was showing you, you can actually spy on your competitors and see like how they are changing their landing pages over time. It's called crayon.co, so it shows you how like different landing pages changed. And why that's good for you is you can see what people are experimenting on and how they are building their landing pages accordingly. So maybe you can try out something similar for your own experiments as well. So that was acquisition. We talked about copywriting, right? And we talked about conversion copywriting. And using that to experiment and try out different copy so that we can get people to take an action. Next, we have activation. And activation over here is when you make your users experience or taste your value proposition, right? So this is called the wow moment. So over here, what we do is essentially people, when you land on a website, they try to acquire you first, right? So what we try to do is we try to apply a wow flip, which means that before you even ask for the name or email address, what you do is you activate them first, right? You think about how you can wow them in a soft wow kind of a way, not a hard wow if you're a physical product. But how can you get the taste of your value proposition across? And then once they are activated, once they are wowed, they are more likely to also give you their name and email addresses and whatever that you want to find out from them. So for instance, GoPro, it knows that its audience is all about adventure trips and it's very visual. So they have these 4K videos on YouTube. And so you're not really questioning a GoPro before you buy it, like you're already kind of sold. Right? So you wowed them earlier on in the process. Tesla has a very visual website, but like you get a really clear idea about like what this car is going to look or feel like in your porch. But something like this, which is what Wealthfront is doing, is something that you can do on your own as well. You can test it out. So there are tools that allow you to code things that earlier would require a lot of developers' time. So for instance, if you want to do a quiz, or if you want to do an assessment, or if you want to do a calculator on your website, right? So these guys, they actually did a calculator. So when you go to their website, these guys are maybe a financial partner, a financial consultant, right? You invest money with them and they invest in different options. And then whenever you get a return, you get a return. So you can imagine that the wow moment would happen once you get a return, which is so late on into the process, right? So these guys, they applied a wow flip. And they decide to activate people earlier on in the process. And this is how the calculator kind of looked like. When you click on invest with Wealthfront, they would not first ask you your name or your email address or any personal information. What they would do is they would ask you questions that were normal for any financial partner to ask you, right? So what are you looking for in a financial advisor? What is the total amount of cash or liquid investments that you want to buy? So they're giving people what they're generally curious about. And then based on these answers, you could put in your risk tolerance level, but it would tell you that this is how we would invest your money. So before you have even invested, before you have even given them your name or email address, you already have an idea about what your investment future would look like, and kind of calms your nerves when you're especially making such a big decision. And only when you see this, you are wowed, right? A soft wow. What you do is you've got this call to action over here, which says, looks great, open my account. I'm actually running out of battery and I have a noob mistake of not bringing in my charger. So I am towards the end of my presentation, right? So just a quick wrap up. rapid experimentation is the way to go. You want to try out different things and you want to see what sticks, right? That requires you to move a little bit away from doing big bang campaigns, but just focusing on breaking it down into smaller experiments. So instead of doing one campaign with this much budget and having a start date and an end date and celebrating that, what you need to do is you need to test things out first and seeing how people react to it. And then based on that, you invest more. So essentially at the end of the day, you would be investing as much as you would invest in a campaign, but you know where your investment is going and you know how it's going to scale. Have focus towards growth. So look at the entire pirate funnel and build your teams according to that, because this is the focus that you need to have as a growth team. It's not just about bringing people to your website. It's about seeing how they go through the entire journey. And then go for multidisciplinary and T-shaped teams. So if you are a PR person, that does not mean that you can't learn a little bit of coding or scraping, right? So that's something that would give you that interesting background and interesting approach towards coming up with ideas for the experiments that you want to do. So this is the T-shaped profile, just a reminder. And then have data-driven teams and decisions. You don't want to be doing experiments based on gut, because that would take away the essence from it, right? So what you want to do is you want to have the right kind of tracking in place and also know like you can get the right dashboards as well for those data points so that you can see the numbers and they're accessible to everybody. This is what a successful experiment would look like. You need amount of experiments, you need success rate, so amount of wins, and then you need to do experiments that also have an impact. These are just some books, suggested read. A lot of our content is inspired from different places. These are one of a few of our top areas in order for you to start T-shaping yourself. And we also have a YouTube channel, so you can check this out at a later point in time, but a lot of the content that we talk about is also available over here. On that note, these are just some products that we have, so different courses that you can participate in. You've got a 12-week course, growth course. We do UX, we do AI, we do business analytics. We also do coaching with teams. So we look at the experiments you're running, workshops, capability scans, the results that I showed you of the different types of skills you have. And these are the different capabilities that you work on. I left my email address, the website in the beginning of the slides. It's growthtribe.co.uk, so you can find out more information over there. But I think I have a colleague over here, Shane, who has something to say that might interest you. And I'm going to bring my charger.
Yeah. Hi guys, so my name's Shane and I actually, I'm a colleague of Hassan's and I manage the UK and Ireland. So I want to just quickly jump on and let you guys know about an acceleration foundation that we are currently running. We've partnered with companies like ASOS, Vodafone, Cafe Nero, Boeing to work with startups and scale-ups in the UK and Ireland. So what it is essentially is a competition that you guys can enter, offering up either a business idea or experiment that you guys would like to run or that you guys have ran, and kind of the data around it. So there's more information on this in the link that I just posted there in the chat. So grow.ac/acceleration-foundation-2021. And all the information and entry details can be found there. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out through that landing page.
Thanks so much, guys. And we'll also include that link in the follow-up email as well, so you'll be able to find it there. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, guys. Sorry, just if you have any feedback for me, you can leave that feedback for me over here on this link as well. If you want to get in touch with me as well, like you can just leave your name and email address over there, and then we can check out things together. But now over to you.
Perfect. So just thanks everyone again. And if anyone has any questions, you can pop them in now, or you can reply to the feedback email and I can pass them on as well. So I think we'll call it a day. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.